Building screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. Hypocrisy, this mockery, and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways, a very special episode of Rogue Ways. I don't think I've done an episode for over a week, just not like me, and that is because I've been quite ill for a week or so, and nearly deadly ill. And so I wanted to come and at least do a short show, which it'll be funny if it's not, because that's also often what I do. I'm like, it'll be a short show today, and then it's like 2 hours long. But I'm not feeling super great still, so it probably actually will be short. But I just wanted to come and at least say hello to people so you know I'm alive. I made it through yet another trip into hell, as one of my friends called it. And I'm here. And I'm glad to be here. Very, very grateful to be here. I've been nearly dying, I feel like, for a long time. And I say that and I think people think I'm just saying it, but actually definitely been true over the past at least 5 years, if not 7 or longer, that I've been, downhill sliding, crashing sometimes really deeply into the abyss of illness, and with very, very little clarity or support about what's happening or what to do about it, which is more and more the case, unfortunately, for so many of us out here. We have all kinds of toxins just assaulting us from birth until death. And they get more and more common and frequent and intense as we go as well. So not only have we likely accumulated so much over the years, but the types and the severity and the frequency of the toxins is increasing as we move further and further into the modern world. It's something I talk about a lot because of all of my health struggles. And you've probably read about it if you're on my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. If you are subscribed for free or paid, then you already heard this story, because I actually got a burst of steroid energy yesterday morning. And I was so amped up that I sat down and wrote the whole thing out. And right after that, I collapsed again. I went back to sleep. I slept the rest of the day, but it was a really interesting little burst of energy. And so you already heard the story of what happened, but and you've also already heard me talk so many times on Substack on this show about healing, about what's making us sick, and while I have specific diagnoses like Hashimoto's, and I have lifelong autoimmune conditions, and I have all kinds of other stuff that isn't even related to toxins, like my really severe scoliosis, and I have metal rods along both sides of my spine. I have chronic pain my whole life from that. I have ankylosing spondylolysis, or some things that no one can pronounce, and just pain, all sorts of stuff. So you heard me talk about all the things we can do for healing, for supporting ourselves in this world of toxins, for clearing stuff out, on and on and on. And, to summarize it really quickly, I'll tell you, it's almost every toxin you can name in Earth. It causes estrogen, causes heavy metal toxicity buildup, and causes parasite overload. All of them, from EMFs to, the heavy metals themselves, to all of the stuff in various medications we're given, all the stuff in our water, all the stuff in our air, all the stuff they spray on our crops, all that stuff causes estrogen overload. It causes heavy metal toxicity buildup. It causes liver damage. So all of these things we start seeing, my autoimmune, my Hashimoto's, it's actually a liver problem. You can call it whatever you want, but what it really is that my liver's been damaged over a lifetime of really intense toxicity. And by the way, yours has too. And I'm not saying that to curse you. I'm saying that to help you become aware that the primary thing you can do for your health is support your liver. As you support your liver, it reduces the estrogen in your body. It's able to process it and get rid of it. I'm not talking to just women, I'm talking to men. Men have too much estrogen too. No, you can't test for it. I mean, you can, but you're not going to find those tests. Good luck finding those tests. You can get the most natural, holistic, crunchy motherfucker in the world. They're not going to know how to do the test. You have to be biopsied in order to actually test how much estrogen overload you have, because it lodges in your tissues. It's not in your pee, it's not in your blood. You might have an overabundance of estrogen in those places, and that would be something. But you might have an overabundance of estrogen in your whole body, and they'll test your pee or your blood or your anything else and be like, yeah, no, you're fine. You're in the normal range. Okay, we'll test your tissue and see how much is lodged up in there. So yes, all of you, we all have too much estrogen. And the number one thing you can do is support your liver. You have too much heavy metals. The number one thing you can do is support your liver. You've got any sort of issues, and the number one thing you can do is support your liver. You've got cancer, you support your liver. You've got nerve damage, support your liver. And there's all sorts of other things you can hone in on, and there's millions of things, and I'm always bringing you more and more of them. I've got another one, actually, I'm so excited to test out and use and then report back to you on. It's something that actually seems to be like it might be a food-based, actual superfood. I'll give you a hint, it's oysters. And yes, I've actually talked about them before. I actually didn't know how perfect they were, though. So we'll do that in another show and another Substack. Again, you should be subscribed to my Substack, rogueways.substack.com. You would have already heard this story. You'd already know all of these things. And also, it's the best way to support me. And man, I need your support right now. So thank you to those of you who have been donating. The donate buttons are below you wherever you're watching or listening to this. There's one on my site at rogueways.org. If you go to the shop, there's actually a donation option. It's in multiples of $10. So if you only got $10, awesome. If you got more than that, you've been listening for a long time, you've been wanting to do something, do multiples. Very grateful for all of your support during this time. It's not just that I can't work during the time I'm sick. It's also that it's expensive to be sick, to buy all the things you need to be healthy. And so I just really appreciate the support. It also just feels good, right? To hear your guys' comments. You guys have been messaging me. You've been leaving notes and stuff here or there and saying hello and sending your love. And it matters. It matters a lot. I really, really appreciate it all. So thank you so much to those of you who are sending your love in whatever ways before now, or now that you're hearing this, or in the future, or when you hear this, or anytime. I receive it. I take it. I'm grateful for it. I just, in the midst of feeling, there was a couple times in the past week where I was literally begging God to kill me. And that's how, and I, again, have a pretty retardedly high tolerance for pain. It's not okay, actually. Like, I have this huge tattoo down my whole entire back, and I was sleeping during most of that tattoo. I have a very high tolerance for pain, as I've had a life of really intense physical pain. And so you learn to dissociate from it and breathe through it and deal with it. And, or you get on like heroin and opiates your whole life, and then that's a totally different path. So a lot of pain, and I was just begging to die. But there's other times where I just thought I was going to die and was begging to live. So it's kind of funny how quickly that can change, right? And I was dead serious both times. I meant it both times. Both extremes I was in. Very, very much meant it. So I'll just tell you what happened. Happy full moon also, by the way. It's a full moon today in true sidereal Sagittarius. It's my sign, which is great for me. We'll maybe touch on that later if I have energy. But here's what happened. So if again, I get flare-ups. Sometimes I have, especially hormonally, because of estrogen, not just because I'm a woman, but because I'm a person in the modern era. And all of us have estrogen issues. But especially me, because I have thyroid disorder, liver disorder, and toxicity issues. Therefore, anytime I have another upwelling, we'll say, of estrogen in my system, I can have like complete breakdowns and meltdowns. So because I still have a cycle, especially right at the beginning of menstruation and at the end, you have these surges of hormones, and those can be really critical times for me. So I take really good care of myself around those times, especially sort of baby myself through it. But I wasn't able to take as good a care of myself this time because right before this, I had gone to the dentist again. You may remember back in November, I had a tooth extraction. I had an upper jaw infection. I did not have a tooth infection. I had an upper jaw infection, which then affected my tooth. So I know that is confusing for some people. Most people have a tooth infection that they allow to go too far, and it starts abscessing and whatever, and eventually it gets into their jaw. Mine was the other way around. My jaw was infected, and it was beginning to move into my tooth. So they removed the tooth, and the extraction was difficult for me for very many reasons. And afterwards, they gave me a prescription for antibiotics. I don't normally take antibiotics. I never have. Maybe when I was a child and I didn't know better and they handed us antibiotics if we ever went to the doctor, which was rare because we were very poor. If it happened, then I did. But I really didn't most of my life. And I definitely didn't ever since I was at least 18. Right? So about the year 2000, so 25 years, no antibiotics. No antibiotics because I know my mom's a nurse, my sister's a nurse. We know the dangers of overprescribing them. I understand the difference between a bacterial infection and whatever it is we call viral infections, right? I understand that antibiotics only work for bacterial infections, and therefore if you don't have one, you shouldn't take them. And I don't think I've ever had a bacterial infection. I don't think most people have ever had a bacterial infection, except maybe in their teeth, actually, ironically. So I don't. So I get prescribed them all the time for like a headache, for a cold, for like a sinus infection, for things that are not bacterial infections, and I just don't fill them and don't take them because there's no point, and I've never needed to, so it's been fine. So this time I was going to do the same, and pretty bad jaw infection again. Remember, the whole thing is I got a jaw infection, which can kill you, but I just didn't really know that, and I just didn't really understand it. It didn't hurt that bad. It really wasn't even a big problem in my mind. The look on my dentist's face could have like told me that this was very serious, and I could have like looked it up and seen, but I just had this habit of like not really caring about antibiotics. And so I was like, yeah, my body will handle it, right? The problem is gone. Well, the problem wasn't gone though. It was in my jaw, not my tooth. So anyways, I get this prescription. I don't fill it. I go to sleep. I have a dream in which my dead grandmother, God rest her, and my dead cousin both come to me and explain to me that if I don't take at least, I believe they said 3 to 4 days, it might have been 4 to 5 or something, at least 4 days, we'll say, of antibiotics, I will die. And ideally, I'll take minimum 7 days to be actually in the clear. But if I want to be truly safe, I should take all 10 days of this antibiotic. I woke up and I was like, well, I guess I should take the antibiotics because that's pretty clear. Pretty clear message. Message received. Thank you, my grandma. Thank you, my cousin. Go fill it. Take all the drugs. Horrible antibiotics. They're called clindamycin, if you don't know, and it rips your guts apart. And so I have taken antibiotics before, like I said, and I understand they like mess up your gut and you lose all your good bacteria and you're just out of balance, and it can take months to get back on track, and your immune system can be affected and all these things. So I know that, but this was like brutal. I was like waking up in the middle of the night with dreams of animals ripping my guts apart because that's how bad my stomach hurt. And it was like getting into the dream. Really bad pain, really feeling like shit. I also realized that part of this was that I was fighting off a lethal infection in my face near my brain, which right? And I just hadn't realized like how suppressed my system was from that too. So the combination of these antibiotics and this infection, it threw me down. So you may remember I was out for like 20 days, I believe. I think I still did some shows, but I was like pretty hit or miss most days for almost a month. Often in bed, often not being able to even exercise or do sort of my normal thing. So pretty bad. But I didn't die from a jaw infection. And I didn't die from a jaw infection because my grandma told me to take the medication, and I did, and it worked, and it healed the infection that was right next to my brain. So good. Problem solved. Moving on, feeling better, whatever. And that for some reason I ended up taking 20 days of the antibiotics back then. And I honestly can't remember why. I don't know. I'm sure it seemed absolutely necessary or I wouldn't have done it, right? Months go by. That was 8 months ago. I just had the titanium rod for the implant place. So they removed the tooth, and now I'm getting this titanium rod. And this is my second implant in my life. The other one was much easier and cheaper because I did it in Turkey and Ecuador. This one's much more expensive, lengthy, and like time consuming, and many more steps. And I'm much more careful. That's the truth. but I don't know if it's better or not, but it is lots more money and much more strenuous and timekeeping. God, see, I shouldn't even be talking to you guys. It takes a lot of time. And so, anyways, getting the second implant in the space where the tooth is taken out, they just prescribe some antibiotics. And I, for the first time in my entire life, didn't even think of not taking them. Like, it had gotten into my brain so deeply this previous time that I really did almost die, that I was like, oh, you take antibiotics or you die. Like, and I don't actually believe that. And if you would ask me and I consciously had to answer you, I would have said, no, of course you don't always have to, but sometimes you do. Right? Sometimes you actually have a bacterial infection that's right next to your brain and you need to kill it before it kills you. Right? But I didn't consciously think of it. I just filled the prescription and took them. It blows my mind. I still am not really sure like what happened or how I did that. I really can't stress to you enough that I don't get why I made that decision. It just feels very unconscious, and that's not like me at all. Very intentional, very thoughtful. Like, don't put anything in my body that isn't anyway. So I'm not really sure. Apparently this just had to happen. And so I was just in some sort of autopilot drone situation. And I just took these, again, clindamycin. Clindamycin is one of the most brutal antibiotics you can take, as I explained with the gut ripping. But this time it didn't even hurt my guts at all, which was really weird. I was like, okay, cool. I guess like the first time sucks. And after that, it's fine. And I was like, I'm always bummed when I take antibiotics. I'm like just thinking about all the work I'm going to have to do to repair my guts afterwards and how bad, blah, blah. But I go through 10 days of clindamycin. I don't have an infection, remember? I just placed a metal rod into my jaw. That's all. Very tiny, not even an incision, really. They just poke up through the gum. Sorry if this is too much for you. And just drill it into the bone. The bone hurts a bit afterwards, but like there's no problem with this. There's nothing's, it's not a huge wound. Your mouth is used to bacteria. But I just took the antibiotics. I took 10 days of clindamycin because they were prescribed, because the last time I took them, they saved my life, and because I was in some sort of autopilot, not even questioning whether I needed them or not. Right? I turned the part of me off that didn't want to take antibiotics in order to take them the previous time. So I took them. And on the 10th day, obviously I was done taking them. And then that was the beginning of my cycle. So then, probably in large part because my gut was destroyed and my body was battling this horrifying antibiotic, I had my normal hormone spike, but I went into a horrifying migraine. If you've had migraines before and this is how I describe it. If you know the 4 stages of a migraine, then you understand migraines. And if you don't, you might have had a pretty bad migraine, but you might not understand migraines fully. And if you know those 4 stages, then I understand you and you understand me, and we both have wished to die before. That's what I know for sure. Because it is the most excruciating, intense pain possible. I've had, again, a lifetime of pain. This is the worst pain I've ever had, is migraines. So really intense pain. There's nothing you can do to stop it. And it usually hits at night. And so I'm sitting in bed. I don't even know. I can't even tell you what you do or don't do during a migraine. But what's really fucked up is then I had the worst cramps almost of my whole life. I've talked to you guys before that I had an abortion when I was 23 or so. And the period after that was brutal. Abortions don't really hurt. They give you painkillers. The period after they don't warn you is like hell. It feels like people are just ripping apart your uterus. Cramps are always not comfortable. They're always painful. That's why we call them cramps, and we have like medication for them and whatnot. But even when I have cramps, sometimes you're like, yeah, that hurts. So I don't really need to take anything for it. Like, I might put a hot pad on. I might be upset for a day. It might not be fun, but it's like, it happens, right? It hurts. You just live with it and move on. This was excruciating. And this was excruciating on top of excruciating. So I was in a full-blown migraine, full pain from that. And then I had the worst cramps ever at the same time. And so I was begging to die. I have some shock that I didn't find a way to die. was horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. And so I was like, this is the antibiotics. This is like what they did to me. And like, this is so horrible. And then I was sort of like, why did I even take those? And I was sort of hitting me, but I was also like, I don't know, whatever. At some point I was vomiting. At some point, it was horrible. I mean, and you literally, when you're having a migraine, as far as I understand, you just vomit because your body doesn't know what else to do. It's like terrified. Then like nothing ever relents. It never stops or gets better. And it's many hours often. And so, it just like vomits to see if that will help. Like, I'm not joking. So it's funny to look back on that and think about that, but it's not funny in the moment. Wanted to die. Still, like, though, this is like somewhat normal. Unfortunately, this is still somewhat normal. And I'm like, yeah, I was starting my period right now. I did just finish this big course of horrifying antibiotics. My body's probably just overreacting. I have this autoimmune, like, la, 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 la. Somewhat normal. At some point, this goes on for like a day and a half, I think. I'm not sure. And at some point, it's like another night. I think. I'm not sure. I won't try to even pretend I know when anything happened, but I started to realize my like face was swollen and that I was starting to get rashes, I believe. And rashes aren't new to me either. I've had them since I was a young child with autoimmune issues. You just get rashes, welts, rashes, bumps, just weird stuff. So not that weird, but then my face was swelling. I've actually never had my face swollen before that I know of. And I was sneezing a lot. I was like sneezing and sneezing and sneezing and sneezing, and my face was swollen. I looked in the mirror at some point and I looked like Rocky Balboa, like after like a fight, like in the movies. Like my eyes were just like puffed up, like I had been punched. I was like itching so bad. So I've had rashes a lot. They're not always that itchy. It's hard to explain. Your skin will just react with autoimmune, but you're not always actively deeply itchy. But it was really itchy. It was really itchy. My face looks like I had been boxing people, and the itchiness just got worse and worse. And at some point I was scratching and I was like wishing that I could rip my skin off. It felt like a rash I've never had in my entire life, ever. Out of all the many rashes I've had, I've never itched this bad. I've had chicken pox. I've had all the things. Never felt this itch before. It felt like my bones itched is the best way I could describe it. And you cannot scratch a bone. I don't know if you knew that, but you can't relieve an itch when it's in your bone. So I would just itch and itch. And I was swelling from itching my skin. So then like my body was swelling, my face is swelling. And then I'm like, wait, what's actually happening right now? So this is so confusing because when you have a migraine, by the way, my migraine finally ended, but then you have a migraine hangover, which is the 4th stage. And that can last for a couple days. And it really is like having a hangover. You have like deep brain fog and like everything's just very confusing and slow. And so in deep brain fog from migraine hangover, I was trying to figure out why my face was swollen. My like itchiness was so bad that I couldn't even handle it. Unimaginably itchy. My blood was itchy. It was like my blood and my bones themselves itched. My skin had nothing to do with it. It was inside of me. It's like trying to rip my head off. Like it was really bad. It was all over from head to toe. You could see it if this camera was better. Unfortunately, I'm glad actually. Unfortunately, you can't see it. I still have the dots everywhere, but they're not showing up on this camera, which makes me happy. But at some point, Johnny was like, this isn't allergic reaction. This isn't migraine anymore. This isn't whatever. You're having some kind of allergic reaction. And we were like, what am I being allergic to? My lungs started to hurt pretty bad. I had some difficulty breathing. And then Johnny was like, oh, you just finished the clindamycin. And I was like, why would I react afterwards? Right? So this is extra confusing again, because I'm like, this is the only thing we could think of that I'd be allergic to all of a sudden. And yet I had finished it more than a day before this moment where we're realizing that I'm reacting to something. Oh, God. Oh, my God. So he looks it up and actually, yeah, sometimes people, and so I'll just say this too, clindamycin is actually prescribed for people who are allergic to antibiotics. So this is how ironic. This has like 75 layers of irony if you just If you want to laugh, I'm fine. My friend actually called me and left me this awesome message. You know who you are. And he was just laughing. He was like, I'm sorry, but like, what the fuck is happening in your life? And I'm like, I know, dude. Like, none of this is kosher at all. So Johnny looks it up, and yeah, it's prescribed mostly for people with antibiotic allergies, which I don't have and have never had because I don't even take antibiotics. And yet, for some people, after the second time usually, so the first round of clindamycin you take, fine. But if you take another round, when you're done taking that round, within a day or two, you can have a severe life-threatening allergy, anaphylaxis. I was like, what? How would you know that? How would you figure that out? And you're not really supposed to figure it out. You're supposed to like make sure you stay breathing, and anytime it affects your airway or whatever, you call 911. And I would have done that. I would have called 911. I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to going to the hospital. If I need to go to the hospital, I'll go to the hospital. At the same time, I've been through so much shit medically that I'm like, I already know they won't do shit and charge you like $20,000 for it. I mean, really. They'll be like, oh, we'll give you an IV of saline, which is salt water, which costs them like $2. And we'll keep you in here to monitor you, and it's going to be $16,000. And you're like, well, fuck. So is it worth $16,000, right? And again, I will absolutely call 911. I will absolutely go to the hospital if I know that that's what I need. But if I know that instead what they might do is go, I don't know, and give me nothing and charge me a bunch of money for it and ruin my life over it, I'm not going to go. So, you know, I had my limits. I was like, if it gets to my airway at all, if my tongue starts swelling, like, I'll go. But my eyes were like blood red. My face is swollen. My throat kind of hurt. My lungs hurt pretty bad. So a lot of people, I think, would have gone. And that would have been fine. That would have been not the worst move they made, because when they got there, they would have been given steroids and the allergic reaction would have stopped probably, and further pain would have been avoided. But we were like just figuring this out. And so, yeah, after the second dose of clindamycin, after you're done taking it, some people develop this exact allergy, exactly the same, just head to toe, desperately itchy from the inside out. The bones themselves are itchy, all the same things like being described. So I was like, well, at least I'm not crazy, right? At least this actually is what other people also sometimes experience. I wish no one did. It's insane. It is enough to drive you mad. And pretty scary too, to think, you know, my lungs hurt. I was like, so it was perhaps right on the edge of not breathing. I don't know. We always had the inhaler. We have an inhaler, steroid inhaler. It would have helped a bit. But finally, when we realized that, I was like, well, I have some steroids from that first dental surgery in November. And so I'll take those. No need to even bother with going anywhere. And so I broke those out and I took some, and like maybe they helped a tiny bit, but they're pretty weak. They're not meant for allergic response. They're meant for keeping swelling down after a surgery. So not the best choice. Not the worst choice. Took some Benadryl. It's like, okay, if this is allergies, I'll take Benadryl. I'll take, you know, these steroids, and we'll get this under control. Very, very slightly might have helped for like a few hours, and then it started getting worse again. The puffiness in the eyes started growing again. The itchiness got really intense. I mean, my body was on fire with itchiness. It was the worst thing ever. My tattoos, again, you see the shoulder bit. This covers my entire back and most of my butt. I also have one all over my right leg. So 2 pretty large tattoos. Somebody who was blind could have traced them perfectly and told me what they were. It doesn't even make sense. It makes no sense at all. But my tattoo lines were like raised up, like emblazoned, as though they had been drawn in fire, like a welt. So if you were blind, you could have felt all my tattoos and told me what they were. Just not what tattoos are supposed to be like. So that was happening too. So it was getting more intense again. It was getting really bad again. And so finally we remembered telehealth exists. So we called telehealth. And the lady's like, yeah, that's cool. Benadryl's cool. Those steroids are cool. Those are not going to stop an anaphylaxis response. And that's the first time I sort of heard it. It was like, oh, anaphylaxis. Like, she's like, yeah, if your tongue's even remotely starting to swell at all, you're going to call 911. You're going to get them there. Like, and I was like, okay. So now I'm taking it very seriously. Not that I wasn't, obviously, but just I understand now that, yeah, it actually is pretty bad. I think she probably was supposed to tell me to go to the emergency room because my lungs hurt, because my lips were swelling for the first time in this entire process. Right when I was talking to her, my lips started like swelling. But she didn't. Instead, she called in this prescription for methylprednisolone, I think is what it's called, and some other stuff for anti-itch and whatever. So we got that pretty quickly, actually, and it pretty quickly started to help. And that was on Sunday, I think. That was still 5 days ago. And I am just now able to talk to you for half an hour. I slept for, I think, like 14 hours the first dose of the anti-itch and anti-allergy stuff I got because my body finally had a break, and I also was on somewhat of a downer drug-wise. So I got to like crash hard and actually sleep through the night without pain waking me up, without itching waking me up. It's not that the itching had stopped, by the way. The itching has stayed intense until yesterday. Today's the first day I have not had an intense, deep bone itch combined with burning fire coming out of some part of my body. So many, many days of pretty powerful steroids and other drugs, and still barely releasing this allergic response, this anaphylaxis. It's not anaphylactic shock. It would have become anaphylactic shock if it was much quicker onset, or if my tongue or my throat would have begun to swell, is my understanding. But the other understanding I have is that this is now perhaps a lifelong, and hopefully not, I don't want to speak it into existence, but I may be more likely to have anaphylaxis responses from now on for all sorts of things. I also obviously never going to take clindamycin again, but some people are saying I shouldn't take any antibiotics ending in sin. I'll say again, I won't take any antibiotics ever again unless I really believe it's going to kill me if I don't. And so those things are on the list of things to keep an eye on from now on out. I am very glad to be alive. I also am pretty annoyed that I just took the antibiotics and didn't think about it. I'm pretty upset with myself. I also feel like, I don't even feel like, I just know shit like this happens, and it like has to happen, and it has to happen however it happens. And there was a couple pretty big like breakthroughs spiritually that I won't go into in detail because they're mine and not yours, but pretty big breakthroughs. You know, and I'll say like it's so interesting because you can be very aware that you never really die. And like I know this beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's not a question, it's not a belief I have, it's not faith I have, it's like a thing I know. In part because I've remembered so many of my past lives, in part because I've left this place and come back to this body in this life multiple times. I've understood that my consciousness doesn't have anything to do with my body, except that this is my like anchor in this time-space reality here with you guys. And so I have no real fear of death. At the same time, when you're being like forced to die, you feel like, and you didn't want to, it's like pretty upsetting, right? I was like, well, not now. I didn't want to die now. I mean, I did want to die like last night, right? I did want to die in the middle of the migraine cramp session, but not now. So that's interesting to experience that, right? Grasping onto life. Nothing wrong with it. It's good to be alive. It was also really interesting the few times where I was able to sort of transcend the pain again, transcend the itchiness again, somehow, and get into my breath and get into like a meditative state and get into this release of the physical, which is very, very helpful when you're in those situations. It helps you get past the wishing for a death part if you can get into that space. And so that was another good practice, another good reminder. But it's also like in the middle of it, you're like, why, God? Like, why? And sometimes God answers and he's like, cause you said so, because you actually want this, believe it or not, because it's actually serving you, believe it or not, and because it's not actually even as bad as you think, you just, you're in your emotions, you're in your body, you're in your fear of whatever, and you're in your grasping. But like, actually, this is like the best you could have gone through this, right? This is the best you could have gone through. So you were going to have to go through this, and this is the best you could have done it. I had the best possible partner I ever could have had in all of this, which is Johnny, obviously. Soulmate power, so amazing. This is so helpful to have someone who just deeply loves you, would like kill and die for you, and able to help you through some of like the most terrible things you can encounter. Like a fucking champ. I wish you didn't have to. I think it's horrible. If you guys know any caretakers, you've been caretakers. It's so hard. So hard to watch people you love suffer and to still be strong for them and be there for them. So what an amazing gift that I have. I was like, man, I hope he never has to go through anything like this, but I will fucking be right there for him just like he was for me. And hopefully I'll do nearly as good of a job as he did. He thought of everything. He was like really actually the reason why I survived this, because I wasn't thinking clearly and I didn't understand what's happening. And yeah, if I actually would have had too much more trouble breathing or something and no one was here, I would have called someone, obviously. But still, he's the reason I understood what was happening. He's the reason I figured it out. He's the reason I got what I needed. Pretty lucky. Pretty lucky. So there's that, right? At other points in my life, I would not have had that. That would have made it much harder. And I also had just finished that Blazing Brightness retreat, which I could never express. But, I've done the shows. You maybe listen to them, whatever. Could never express exactly what came through and what we created together in that amazing retreat. And the energy of that like kept coming back to me over and over again through this ordeal. It was probably part of what brought me back into that meditative state. It was probably part of what brought me back to that, remembering that, when you're down in it and you're really attached to the pain and the insane pain, insane itchiness, and the horrifyingly overwhelming feelings you're having, then that's really hard. But if you can just release into that, there actually is still the light and life and love that you can touch and you can feel even in that place, which is incredible. It's actually amazing. It's like how people get through some of the worst possible things. And obviously, this isn't even close to the worst possible things. Unfortunately, there's worse things than this. And they happen to people. And people get through those too. And this is part of how, right? It's because of this connection. And so I got that. I was still riding some of the waves off that event, but I also, again, had so many people who were reaching out and who were sending me love, who were sending me, yes, even money and support and all kinds of connection. And it matters. I tell this story like too much now, but I remember hearing one of the many people who's had a near-death experience was in a car accident. And so as this person's floating out of their body, they're looking down and they're seeing all the people, and you can see people's energy, and you can see it now too if you want to practice and try. There's auras and energy is visible if you hone in on it. But especially when you're out of body, like you don't have a choice, you're going to see it. So you see this, and she sees all the people who are like, oh God, accident, or oh God, like this and that. And she sees our energy is like not helping. It's discordant. It's not flowing. It's not good. And then she sees the few people who are like praying, who are hoping for a good outcome, who are like, let's all get through this together. Let's all do our best. And all that energy is like coalescing, is going straight to her body as she's sitting there floating above it and helping it to stay alive. And that's how it felt. Because every time any of you sent me any kind of love, I was like, okay, I can do this, right? I can do this. So it really matters. It matters that we do these things. It matters that we come together. It matters that we did Blazing Brightness. It matters that you think well of people and you send them love and you send them well wishes. And you can think of it as prayer if you want, or manifestation or anything else. It doesn't matter. It's just your heart and your mind are aligning in this gift to somebody, essentially. I send people blessings. That's one of the things I do. It's one of the services I offer. You might feel like you don't do that. And maybe you technically don't do exactly what I'm doing. But when you have this prayer, you have this intention, it's very similar. It's very, very similar. It's just that energy of love actually matters. It's actually healing. It's actually uplifting. So I got to see all of that too. And I just got to also see some of more karma that I was transforming. I got to see more ancestral connections of what I was transforming. And I know, again, I feel like I always have to give this caveat, karma isn't a punishment. It's not like someone's out there and they're like waiting for me to suffer. And if I finally suffered enough, they'll finally give up. It's not like that. It's really is. It's what you create. You have it now. And so you have it until you don't have it anymore. And I created that, right? I created that amount of suffering or worse in people. I stood by while people suffered in that way and didn't do anything about it. I also caused directly that much suffering or more on people. I know it because I lived it. I know it because I remember that life. I'm sure there were more than the one I remember, but the one I remember is enough. And so it's not I deserve this. Oh, bring it on. Like, it's not like that. It's just that I see the energy that I create and I see what it is to sit with it until it can dissipate, right? And let go of it. So I see the transformation as well. I talk about this a lot too. Anytime I face something or you face something it's exceptionally dark or difficult, in the middle of it, you usually have moments where you're like, I can't do this. Or this is way too much pain, way too much sensation, way too much overwhelm. I can't do this. And actually you can. You can. And afterwards you look back and you're like, yeah, I did that. But also look at what I transformed, look at what I released, and look at what I have now, which is an even deeper sense of self, an even deeper understanding of what I'm doing here. And honestly, even a deeper sense of self-love and of love for others and of others' love for me. I mean, it's like hard to be attached to some petty bullshit when you just face death, right? It's hard. It's a lot easier, in fact, to be like, you know what? Whatever, I love you. Oh, some bullshit we all had, whatever. Who cares? Let's move on, right? And it's like not like you just let people walk all over you or whatever, but you just get a little bit more real about what's real. And a lot of shit isn't real. A lot of shit doesn't matter. So it is a gift. It is a gift, actually, in many ways, to understand what life is and what a gift it is, and to use it as such and to treat it as such while you're still here. It's pretty cool. I also always hear my grandma, who came to me and told me to take those antibiotics in the first place. Cool if she would have told me not to take them this time, but I don't blame her. It's hard to come through to the living sometimes. Just fucking with you, grandma. But she would always say, none of us is making it out of here alive. And that's true. None of us is making it out of here alive for sure. I would like to die a bit more peacefully than I would have if I died this weekend. That would be cool. I'd like to just like die nicely in a bed in the middle of the night or something, like I'd like to just, that'd be neat. I don't have to be like horribly pain and suffering or whatever. Like that'd be cool. But I'll at least take that. I enjoy life now. I'm still glad to be here. Still happy to be here. I'm not suffering at the moment anymore. Too much, at least. I think it really is done. I think it's over. I get little bits of the rash comes back, and actually it has been while I've even talking. You perhaps can see a little bit on my neck. It just kind of comes and goes, but not bad. So like the lightest level of itch and irritation, and it's okay. Especially compared to what it was. So, and again, part of why I resist a hospital, and I will absolutely go if I need to. I'm not totally opposed. I think you and I both know there's been a little too much of forcing people to inject things that they didn't choose. A little too much of like sneaking it, even a little too much of saying like, oh, I gave it to them even if they didn't want it. That we've seen too many medical professionals admitting to over the past few years for me to really trust very many doctors or trust being somewhere where I may be out of consciousness and people have access to me and access to all of those things they could inject. So, like I would still go if it's going to save my life, but I'm definitely going to avoid those psychopaths at every cost possible, as long as I won't die, right? So there's a boundary I have there, and I'm glad I didn't have to cross it in order to save my life this time. So I will also say there's some sort of stupid shit with the Third Eye Carnival which I missed because I was an anaphylactic response to antibiotics that tried to kill me. I wouldn't have actually probably gone anyway because I was going to try to go to Nebraska and see fireflies. But that didn't happen either. So neither thing happened. But apparently a Third Eye Carnival down in Pueblo this past 4th of July weekend, it created some hubbub in the local art community. Apparently some people went there and were vending and were not quite in the alternative thinking, free-minded, sometimes anarchic, sometimes libertarian, sometimes slightly right-wing, sometimes slightly left-wing community that is this alternative media sphere and conspiracy sphere. They weren't in any of those spheres, but they were somehow vending there anyway, which they were quite rude about, from what I understand. They were like upset. They just were looking down their nose at everybody. They were very judgmental, is what it sounds like, from their own statements, by the way. No one who was there told me this. I just heard them say it in their own statements afterwards. And then somebody on some panel said something that they couldn't understand as a joke, which, again, if you listen to me, it wouldn't have bothered you. If you listen to Day Zero, wouldn't have bothered you. But if you are, I don't know, if you take yourself so seriously, you can't ask questions and you don't understand reality very well and you don't think past what the media tells you, then I guess it offends you. And so they packed up their booths and left. They packed up their booths and left in the middle of the day. And now they're on a campaign to essentially destroy the guy who hosts it. I don't even know Jeff that well. I just know Jeff exists. I know he owns the Blowback Gallery. I know he lets them do the Third Eye Carnival. He seems like a cool guy. He does cool art shows there. It's a functional, normal art gallery that also happens to do these types of events, which is really awesome. It's really awesome if you can provide a space for community to come together and be together, especially if you don't censor people. It'd be one thing if you literally were hosting hate groups who are planning to harm people and whatever, sure, but just people who just say things that might offend someone and you'll allow them to, that is actually what life should be like. You should be allowed to just say things, even if not everyone agrees with them, even if some people get their feelings hurt about it. And he does that. I think that's really awesome. So I have a lot of respect for Jeff, just from those few things I know about him. And this person's trying to destroy Jeff. Jeff isn't even the one who said anything. Jeff just hosts this event, which, by the way, any space you could rent could also be said to host an event. It always is implied that the host of the event does not necessarily agree with the people in the event. It's always implied. It's sometimes expressly stated, apparently for idiots like these people who don't understand the difference. Can you imagine being that stupid? So this person now is going to try to ruin the life of a kind human and his business. He's worked his ass off, I'm sure. Most businesses are not any other way. Worked his ass off to have, worked his ass off to support people in the community, worked his ass off to give people this. We don't even know if he agrees with any of the Third Eye Carnival stuff, any of the conspiracy stuff. We have no idea because it doesn't matter and it's not the point. The point is it's his business and he was not the one who did anything. And these people are now actively trying to destroy him. And unfortunately, because they're women with tits, they get some sort of benefit and people give them some sort of, I don't know, some sort of clout, some sort of support. I mean, really. That it's not that they're actually righteous. It's not that their point is good. Is that they're offended women. And because they have boobs, people are like, I'm going to defend them too because I might get laid. It's really how the world is, unfortunately. It's really how the world is, unfortunately. It's actually, unfortunately, how the art world is. I'm not even in it. I just see it. You probably see it too. Dudes are painting and they're not whipping their dick out, but women are painting and they're in bras. They're in tiny little weird overalls that are just barely covering their nipples. And I'm so this is porn, but you're calling it art. Well, it's very obvious what you're selling. And it's not your art. And these people seem like that to me. And you can go see for yourself and see all their posts of themselves with their art. and see if you think the same. And maybe it's cool. Maybe you love it when women use their tits to sell art and destroy galleries. But I don't. I think it's lazy. I think it's weak. I think it's meant to, unfortunately, it's like emotionally dysregulated, and it's meant to fill some holes that should have been filled in childhood by loving parents but weren't. And this is unfortunately how people act when they don't have themselves healed. They're like, I want attention. I want to be made to seem righteous. I want people to look at me and say, oh, wow, look at her. Look at what she's doing. Go, girl. They desperately need it, in fact. And they might not have ever even been slightly offended, but they saw their opportunity to get a shitload of attention and to feel like a really good, special person who's different from others. Do you know who wants to feel special and different from others? It's a developmental stage. It's usually around the ages of 11 to 15 or so. That's when it happens. And unfortunately, the vast majority of adults have never left that stage. And so they're still there, still trying to feel special and different, and trying to fill a hole their parents didn't fill, that can't be filled actually by any of this. You might end up successfully destroying Jeff and his business for no reason at all, and you will still feel like a pointless, empty piece of shit that you are. And nothing will have changed. That sucks. It's really sad, actually, for people who are stuck in this loop. So it'd be cool. We could like hope that that person has some sort of conscience, some sort of heart awareness that dawns on them, that it isn't actually cool to destroy someone in their business because you don't have a brain or a sense of humor or the ability to ask questions or think for yourself. That would be cool. We can hope for that. In the meantime, we can call out bullshit when we see it, and we can have better standards for ourselves and others. And we can hope that everybody gets a little bit more emotionally well. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. So that apparently happened when I wasn't at the Third Eye Festival. And I'm getting exhausted. I'm going to go now. I was going to tell you about Sagittarius full moon, but I think you can figure it out yourself. If you go to masteringthezodiac.com, Nathan Comenti has lots of good stuff on it. Yeah. I don't have a nice tight bow to put on this for you, really, but I am again glad. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that I'm alive. I'm glad that I will hopefully get better and better from here on out. I am not feeling good still. I hope to feel much, much better. I am much, much better. Just not good enough. I'm not anywhere near normal. And I hope to go beyond normal and thrive even more than ever before. I really appreciate your support. Again, the best way to support me is to go to Substack, rogueways.substack.com, and become a subscriber there. Paid subscriber is the best way to support the show and get free, good, yummy perks like channeled messages on Substack. You can also subscribe there for free. I would appreciate having you there, even if you don't become a paid subscriber. There's lots of free content as well. And the other way is to go to rogueways.org to the shop. There's a donate option in the shop as though you were purchasing an item. There's also other donate options below wherever you're watching or listening to this. And also, if you just want to send a nice message of support and love, I'll take that too. It is worth a lot to me. So thank you all so much for being here and for being you. And until next time, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
To them screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rumors that don't like you. Referrers trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempt the mental robbery, executed sloppily. The paupers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down